But we're going to continue a conversation. We've been calling it Happens, and it's this simple idea that life happens, right? Life happens to you, and life is hard. And life is hard, life has ups and downs, and it's just what life is. But I believe, right, that inside of you, right, maybe deep inside of you, maybe it's been buried too far, there's dreams and there's hopes and there's goals and there's things that you want to do and you want to accomplish, right? And what happens is life happens and it starts just continuing to pound and to beat down on those dreams and those goals and those hopes that you have buried inside of you. And I believe it's even deeper than that. I believe that you were created on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose, and that you have a purpose. And you're not even in this room by accident. It's not like, oh, I just stumbled into this place. What's going on? Like, no, you're here, and there's a purpose for you. And there's a reason, and there's meaning in the way that you're wired and shaped, and all of that has deep, significant meaning. But what happens is life happens. It happens to me, it happens to you, it happens to all of us. And there are these things, these issues, and these threats that catch us, and many times they catch us off guard and we don't see them coming. It's like, oh, we look back and like, oh, that's what that was, right? And these things, these issues, these threats, what they do is they sabotage us and they hinder us and they keep us from being who I believe that God created us to be, and they keep us from fulfilling and living our purpose. And so I believe God has so much in store for you and for your life, and I want us to kind of hit these things head on. And so what we're trying to do is we're just trying to own it. Like, hey, here are these things. They hit us all. We all face them. Let's just kind of talk about them now, and maybe we can head it off a little bit and just at least know that it's coming. And so today, I want to talk about one thing that's inside of me. And I want to talk about one thing that's inside of you. And this thing, here's what it does. It keeps me from, this one thing keeps me from, and it causes me to. Okay, this one thing that's inside of you, it keeps you from, and it causes you to. Now, I'm going to read some things that it keeps us from and causes us to, and maybe you can figure out what this is. So here's what this thing inside of you and me does. This one thing inside of us, it keeps you from celebrating another person's success. This thing, it keeps you from initiating an apology even though you know you're wrong. This thing that's inside of us, it keeps you from initiating an apology when you're 5% wrong and the other person's 95% wrong. This thing inside of us, it keeps us arguing our point even though we've realized we don't really have a point to argue. It keeps us from admitting that you're lost. Okay, guys, I see you. It keeps you from admitting that you need help. It keeps you from admitting that you don't know what you're doing. It keeps you from being honest with yourself. It keeps you from being honest with others. This thing inside of you, it keeps you from learning new things because you want people around you to think that you know everything. This thing inside of you, it causes you to feel good when someone else fails. You ever feel good when someone else like, oh, yeah. This thing inside of you, it causes you to power up when you should open up. This thing inside of you, it causes you to cheat before you would allow yourself to lose. You should come play games at my house. It causes you to lie about your past. A failed relationship, a failed marriage, maybe on your resume. This thing inside of you, it causes you to always have to have the final word. You have to have the final word. This thing inside of you, it causes you to buy things to impress people that aren't even paying attention to you in the first place. You know what we're talking about? This ugly word. Oh, jeez. Not looking forward to this talk at all. I was trying to get out of today somehow, but I couldn't get sick enough. Right, but this thing, we're not talking about the good pride here, right? There's good pride, right? There's pride, there's like pride in my kids, or pride in your niece and your nephews, or I'm proud of my photography, or I'm proud of my artwork, right? Or I'm proud of my company, right? There is a good pride, right? That inspires people to greatness, right? But there's also this yucky thing, this yucky, nasty kind of thing that's inside of you and me. And the great writer C.S. Lewis, he summed it up this way. Look what he says. These are words we don't use. He says, unchastity, anger, greed, drunkenness are mere flea bites in comparison to pride, because pride leads to every other vice. They're just flea bites, right? And this thing, it's in you and it's in me. And the reality is most of us in this room, we've been victims of this, right? You've been a victim of pride in your family, relationship. Maybe you work for someone, right? You're a victim of pride. Because here's the thing about pride. This is what the really, really hard part about pride. The hard part about pride is it's really easy to spot in someone else. I can pick it up in you in a second. Oh, look at that person. But this is almost virtually impossible to see in the mirror. I mean, it's almost impossible to see in yourself. In fact, even now, there's some of us that are like, okay, I don't really need this talk. I'm good, right? Maybe that's an indicator. We should pay attention. Oh, great. I got to listen. But what does pride do? What is it? I mean, this is not new information. You know this. I'm just saying this so that we're all on the same page. What does pride do? Pride diminishes you, right? Right? Pride is the thing that promises you that's going to make you big, but in the end, it makes you small, right? That's what pride promises you. Like, hey, bigger and better, but really what happens in the end is worse and smaller, right? Pride diminishes you. It also diminishes your capacity to admit what you need to admit. It diminishes your capacity to acknowledge what you need to acknowledge. Pride diminishes your capacity to apologize. You ever have one of those conversations in your head like, well, I know I should go apologize, and I know was kind of wrong what I said, but right? And you play those mental gymnastics in your head. Pride diminishes your capacity to love, to receive love. Pride diminishes your capacity to say what needs to be said. There's like people just all around us every day that are just dying for a word of encouragement. A spouse, a kid, a neighbor, co-worker, they just need just a word of encouragement. And pride just saps that out. Pride diminishes your capacity to hear what you need to hear, to give what needs to be given. Pride diminishes your ability to do what needs to be done. Pride diminishes your capacity to love. It diminishes your capacity to receive love. Another thing it does, pride crowds others out. When you are full of you, there's no room for anyone else, right? The people who are crowded out the most by pride are who? People closest to you, right? The ones that you love the most, the people who love you the most. Right? You've experienced this, right? You ever had parents that wouldn't admit they were wrong? Remember that? They're like, oh, yeah. You got a boss, never wrong. The boss is never wrong. You live with someone who's never wrong. What happens, right? Pride shoves people in the corner. Right? It shoves people in the corner. It puts them in the corner. It deprioritizes everything and everyone in the room. And the question we got to ask today is, are you giving control of the remote control of your life over to pride? You even see this in regards to God, right? And let me just kind of be real here for a second. I think so many people that I talk to, whether they're parents at my kids' school, people I talk to day in and day out here in this great city, is that pride is keeping them from God, right? Now, people want to argue it's intellectual, right? But I'm going to say, no, it's your pride, not your intellect, that's keeping you from God. It's like this stiff arm from God. It's pride. And yeah, I'm sure there's 3 or 4 reasons why, I can't quite wrap my head around God because of this, or I had this experience, way back when, 10 years ago and all that. But it's really pride. Because what does pride do? Pride shuts us in, and it shuts God and others out, right? Shuts us in, and it shuts God and others out. And the invitation, the simple invitation is from Jesus. If you read through the New Testament, the simple invitation that he says to you and me, he just says, hey, follow me. Just follow me. Just come follow me. It's just that simple. Follow me. You don't have to figure it all out. You have to know everything. You have to believe everything. Just come follow me. And the real invitation is, if we follow Jesus, we unfollow pride. The invitation to follow Jesus is actually an invitation to unfollow pride. One of the things I love to say around here at Miami Church is, hey, people get all hung up, right? Like, I just got to figure it all out. I got to know everything. Well, you're never going to figure everything out. You're never going to know everything, right? It's just not. Life's too complicated. There's too many things. What Jesus just says is, hey, why don't you just take a step? Why don't you just take your next step? What is the next step that you need to take? And what happens is pride comes like this barrier, right? All right, and this barrier, and we can rationalize it and make it all kinds of other, but it's this barrier that keeps us from just taking the next step. Because we got to take a next step toward trust or toward surrender. And he says, hey, just take your next step. Just follow me. Whatever your next step is, you need to take it. I mean, we saw this yesterday. Right? It's part of why. Have you ever thought about this? I'll go freestyle here for a minute. You ever thought, like, baptism is weird, right? You looking at me like I'm like, oh, yeah. You've thought this. Have you not thought this? Thank you. I got one honest guy in the front. We're talking about honesty next Sunday, so you probably want to be here. Ray, you can skip. Right? But it's weird, right? Like this idea, right, that you're going to, like, saw these pictures, right? You're going to go down in the water, okay? Like, okay, that's cool. The ocean did feel awesome yesterday. So you're going to go in the water, and you're going to go underneath the water and come out, right? Now, I get the theological side of it, okay? Okay, I get the whole, the symbolization of, buried with Jesus, right? The symbolization of what he did and raised to new. I get that. But why go under the water and out of the water? I think this is the root issue right here. It takes some humility to do that, doesn't it? I mean, it's kind of, your hair's going to, well, not Kiki's hair, my hair, but your hair gets all messed up, right? You come out like you're all wet and like this. It's just it's kind of weird, right? But I think the root issue here is this picture. Like, man, it's like this giving up. Like, okay, God, I'm going to take I don't have it all figured out. Like when you come up out of the water baptism, it's not like life is perfect, you got everything. But it's this sense of like, I'm giving you the steering wheel. I'm giving you the control. I want you to lead my life, right? And it takes this humility. And here's the beauty of Jesus, is that Jesus taught and he modeled this radical, liberating version of humility. I mean, it's so counterintuitive. It's so different. It's just hard to even get your brain around. It's the genius of Jesus. It's the greatness. And you don't even have to be a follower of Jesus to see this. Like, you don't even have to be in. You can just, like, look at the way that he lived and realize, like, wow, that's like a better way to live. Like, that's just a better way to live. That's just a more peaceful way to live, a more hopeful way to live, a more giving way. Like, I don't even have to believe the whole Jesus Bible stuff. And in fact, the way we say it around here is like, I believe that even if you're not there, like, Jesus will make your life better and make you better at life. Like, even if you just follow the model of Jesus and don't even believe, like, it'll make your life better and it'll make your life better and make you better at life. But here's what I know, right? Is this dream that you have, these goals that you have, this what you want to accomplish. You know what pride does? It hinders and it keeps you from living that. This purpose that I believe that you have, this grander, deeper meaning and purpose to your life that's bigger than you. You know what pride does? It just keeps me and you from living that purpose and that meaning that we're called to live. And so I think there's just this simple teaching from the life of Jesus. Like, if we just applied this one thing, like, it would really propel us and move us toward what God is calling us to do. Think about this for a second, okay? Jesus shows up 2,000 years ago on the scene. I know most of you haven't studied first century culture, but first century culture was jacked up. Probably similar to how it is now, right? It was just jacked up, right? It was just crazy. And there was just this hierarchy, right? Right? And there was like people at the top who were like kings and rulers and religious leaders. And it went all the way down to like poor people. And like women and children had no place. They were just thrown to the side. And it was just racism, and it was just ugly, right? And there was this real deep belief in the first century that if you were sick or something was wrong with your life, that God was mad at you. You had done something, or even your parents or grandparents had done something, and because you're sick or you're not healthy or you got leprosy then somebody or you or somebody had done something. And so all of this is going on, right? All of this crazy thinking and belief systems is going on, and then Jesus drops right in the middle of this, right? And all of a sudden he starts saying things that just redefine and rephrase everything. He starts saying things like this. Hey, if you want to be first, you should be last. What are you talking, right? He starts talking about this idea of greatness. And he redefines greatness. He says, hey, true greatness is not being at the top of the hierarchy. That's what you think, right? That's what they told you in school. That's not it. True greatness is defined by how you serve. It's measured in terms of service. Greatness It's not about being right. Like, oh, I'm smart, I'm rich, I got it all. Like, no, it's about serving. It's about giving. It's about others first, right? What? Then he says this next one. He shows up and he says, hey, you know who's going to inherit the earth? The meek. The meek. What? What does that even mean? The meek. What are you even talking about? Like, do you got your kids? Like, all right, kids, let me just give you a lesson in meekness today. All right? Do you have it on your bathroom mirror? You got a big Post-it note up there that says, be meek all day. Right? You should, like, what are you even talking about? Right? This is why you should consider following. If you're not a follower of Jesus, you should consider following Jesus, because this is revolutionary, right? I mean, if you're holding back, I mean, this is what sets Jesus apart from every other belief system, every other God, every other thing. This is what sets Jesus apart. Is it all rulers and all gods and all that? It's about move toward me, serve me, do things for me. And Jesus flips the whole thing over and he says, no, I'm going to move toward you. I'm going to pursue you. I'm going to actually come toward you. And what does Jesus do? He washes people's feet. What? There's gods or rulers that do that stuff. What does he do, right? At the time in the first century, there was this crazy stuff called leprosy, and this is skin disease, and they had all these rules like, hey, if you're a leper, you got to live outside the city, and you can't come within so many feet of people, and you're just basically ostracized. And so Jesus starts healing lepers. So he could, like back in the back where Curtis is, he could be like, hey, man, be healed. You're good. Be healed. Right? He could do that. But what does Jesus do? He didn't do that. He walks over and touches. It's against all the rules, all the laws. You're not supposed to do that. He touches. He just flips it all upside down. He says, guys, you got it all backwards. You're trying to be something and climb some kind of ladder and be some kind of status. Man, it's wrong. Greatness is in service. It's in meekness. Here's the other thing, reconciliation, the next one. Think about this, okay? Jesus was right. Okay? Jesus was right. What he said, what he did, he was right, but he was wronged, right? He did the right thing, and he got punished for doing the right thing. But yet, what did he still do? He pursued reconciliation. He was right, he was wrong, yet he initiated. He pursued reconciliation. Now, what does pride do? Right? I know what it does for me. Pride says, wait. Well, I'm just going to think about apologizing for a little bit longer, a couple years, right? Or I'm going to let them come to me. I'm going to let them come to me because I'm 49% wrong. They're 51, so they should kind of come this way. You know what I'm saying? Right? That's what pride is. And Jesus says, no. He initiated. Like Jesus, no. I'm a 0% wrong, and they're 100% wrong, and I'm still going to initiate. Right? The Apostle Paul guy, even if you're not a church person, you've heard of this guy. He, first century guy, radically changed by Jesus, helped start churches all over the known world at the time, and then wrote these letters that became what we call the New Testament. And he had this perspective, right? So he knew James, the brother of Jesus, and he knew John, and he knew Peter, and all these guys that walked with Jesus. And then 20 years later, he's looking back. He's like looking back, and he's going like, hey, I'm looking back 20 years later, and I'm reflecting on what Jesus said and did and taught and lived. And I'm reflecting on it, and he wrote it down. And it's one of those beautiful writings that there is. And here's what he said. It's in Philippians chapter 2. See it right here on the screen. He's writing to the church, to the followers of Jesus. He says, don't do anything only to get ahead. Don't do it because you're proud. Instead, be humble. It's an easy word to say. It's a really hard word to live, right? Don't be humble. He said, instead, be humble. Next one. Value others more than yourself. None of us should look out just for, right? Let me take care of yours. But none of us should look out just for yourself or for your own good. Each of you should also look out for the good of others. Right? He's flipping this around. He's like, hey, here's what Jesus did. He didn't live just about himself. He lived for others. There's this picture I had yesterday at baptism. Like, here's this wonderful person who's trying to raise a daughter and do life. And man, it's going to be hard, but wow, look at this. Other people are looking out for you. They're caring about you. They want to be involved in your life and do life with you. Look out for the good of others. Verse 5, as you deal with one another, you should think and act as Jesus did. Again, he's looking back 20 years. He's like, think and act as Jesus did. Verse 6, in his very nature, he was God. Jesus was equal with God, but he didn't take advantage of that fact. You know what I think one of the hardest parts about living and doing life in Miami in 2019? Entitlement. Right? We're entitled. Right? I deserve. I'm entitled to. I work hard. I'm entitled to. Right? And what's he say here? He didn't take advantage of it. He didn't take advantage of it. Verse 7. Instead, he made himself nothing. He did this by taking on the nature of a servant. He was made just like human beings. He appeared as a man. He was humble and obeyed God completely. He did this even though it led to his death. Even worse, he died on a cross. You know, I've been reflecting on this for a few weeks and honestly kind of dreading this whole topic because I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about it in my own life. But as I've been wrestling with this and owning pride in my own life, trying to look in the mirror, knowing that it's hard to see that, I've been reflecting on people around me that I go like, man, there's something different about them. I used to work for this guy, very successful, very, very successful. He's a writer. He's literally wrote books that have been sold all over the world. And he's just a great guy. Not perfect. And I just started reflecting. I go, what were characteristics of this guy? That as a young leader, I was sitting around the table with him and I was just learning stuff. Now, he wasn't teaching it or saying it directly, but I was learning, and I started just writing some down. So here's some things that I think humble people do. These are some things, if you want to just squash pride, if you want to just attack pride, these are some habits, these are some practical things that you can do. And the first one is this: apologize. Be quick to offer an apology. I mean, I was in this meeting, I was in my 20s and thought I knew everything. And we were in this meeting and I said something, like, yeah, we're going to, right? And this guy that I'm talking about, who was my boss, he snapped back at me. I mean, put me in my place, right? About 5 minutes later, we had a break from the meeting. It was a break. And I walk out, let's go to the bathroom, go get some water. And he comes right toward me. And he says, Greg, I just want to say I'm sorry. I did not respond well in that moment. And I thought back on that. I'm like, what I said was stupid. I don't even remember what I said. I'm sure it was dumb. Some hot-headed kid. You don't even know what you're talking about, right? But it didn't matter, right? But he initiated. He came toward me. And what he did there spoke volumes. My respect for him, my appreciation for him. Like, he didn't have to do that. He was probably right. Right? But what do people who are pursuing humility, who are trying to combat pride, what do? They're quick to apologize, to say I'm sorry, to say I was wrong. Here's another one. Say thank you. Just say thank you. Quick to say thank you, to show gratitude, to realize, hey, you didn't get to where you got by yourself. Right? There's people along the way that have been placed in your life that have helped you get to the next step. Maybe even this week you should go back and think through the past 10 or 20 years, like who helped you get there, and maybe write them a quick note, but just be quick to say, thank you. Recognize, hey, thank you so much. Without you or your influence, whatever little role you played in my life, I couldn't get to where I wanted to get. Right? In order to accomplish your goals, in order to accomplish your life purpose, in order to accomplish what you need to do, I can guarantee you cannot do it alone. There's going to be people that are going to need to help you, and so maybe you just need to say a quick thank you. Here, we'll roll through these quick. The next one is this: ask for help. Guys, I'm talking to us for a minute here. I'm terrible at this. I'm just terrible at this. I think we're terrible at this. How can I help you? I'm good. All right. Well, actually, I need help, but I don't want to say it. All right. This is an indicator of pride. Like, I'm good. I'll figure it out. Right. People that are pursuing humility, they're quick to ask for help. Like, I actually could use some help. I could actually use some help. Here's another one. Open your notebook. What I mean by that is I find that people that are pursuing humility, they're trying to combat pride, they have a posture of learning. Whatever environment they're in, they're like, I can learn something here. Right? These are people that sit close and take notes, right? These are people that are writing things down. What can I learn? How can I be better? What can I learn from this person? They ask a lot of questions. Open your notebook. Learn, a posture of learning. Here's the last thing on this part. Honest with yourself and God. See, to really do this, we have to get brutally and ridiculously honest with ourselves and with God. We have to own it, because what pride does is it pushes us in and it pushes God and others out. And so we have to get just ridiculously honest and own it. And this is probably the worst part and the hardest part. Right? We just have to own, like, hey, this pride that I have, this pride in myself, it's hindering, it's holding me back from being who you called me to be, and it's shutting people out. Pride, it's deep. I think it's deep inside of you. It's deep inside of me. And pride makes us believe things. Things like this. It makes us believe that what other people think is more important than what God thinks. It makes us believe that God's love for me is not enough. It makes me believe that God's approval for me is inadequate unless I seek the approval of others. Pride makes us believe that appearance, the way we look, that our appearance counts for a lot. Pride makes me believe that I am what other people think I am. And there's all kinds of these lies that get thrown at us, right? They're just not true. They're not right, and they make you believe things and feel things and do things that just are not right. And what God wants to do for you and me is He wants to give you freedom. He wants to release you from all of that. He wants you to have freedom from those beliefs and those thoughts and those actions. He says, I want to give you freedom. I mean, could you imagine? Could you imagine what a group of people like this, could do if we were just to take steps toward, right? I don't know if we can ever fully get rid of pride, but if we just took steps toward humility, if we just took steps toward serving others and putting others first, could you imagine what a group of people like this could do in a community like this? I mean, a community like this where humility is going to really stand out, right? Right? Where it's just not about, hey, look at me. Like, no. How could we serve? How can we help make the community a better place? How can we rally around people? Could you imagine what could happen if a group of people like us, not perfect, we don't have it all together, we're going to make mistakes, but what if we genuinely, like authentically, genuinely serve people? What if we just genuinely put other people's first? What if we just move toward people with the idea of helping? What if we were quick to apologize? Like, I'm sorry, that's on me, I own it. What if we were quick to offer gratitude and say, hey, thank you, that really means something? What if we were quick to lean in, to listen, to seek? It tells us in the account of the first church that's in what's called Acts. It's a book in the Bible, but it's really just a letter that tells the story of the first church. It's brilliant. And it goes through and it tells the story of how these men and women are just trying to figure things out and what it's like to do life together. And it gets to this point. And Paul is writing in this, and he says, you know what really happened? Is these men and women, these ordinary men and women, he says, they just turned the world upside down. They turned the world upside down. You know how they did that? They just served. They just showed up day in and day out, and they were faithful. And they just tried. They don't always get it right. They weren't always perfect. They just tried to serve others and to give and to be generous and to lean in and ask questions and support one another and love one another. And they turned the world upside down. And I believe what happened in the first century can happen right now in this city, 2019, 2020, beyond the next 10, 20 years. If just a group of men and women would just simply say, okay, I'll do it. Try to follow the way of Jesus and simply give of my life. God, would you just bless us, God? I just genuinely feel that there's an amazing group of men and women in this room who genuinely want to serve you and serve this city, God. And I'm the first to admit we don't have it all figured out. We don't know everything, God, but I witnessed it yesterday. As this group of people just rallied around Shayla and Kiki, God, as this group of people just rallied together to said, hey, we're here, we're together, and we want to love and serve. And so, God, I thank you for what you're doing in and through us. And God, may we just kill this nasty thing called pride. God, may we get over ourselves and may we just turn to you and seek to live a way that puts others and exalts others. And we love you now and we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.